Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In this video I'll be going through my Game Week 19 team selection. I put this video off as long as possible before recording because I knew there would be absolute chaos, and indeed that is what has happened. The Liverpool Leeds game has been postponed, the Watford Wolves game has been postponed, there is now talk of the Chelsea and Aston Villa game being postponed further. It looks like that extra free hit that we were given might come in handy, so it might be that I end up playing my free hit, which we'll discuss in today's video. Other than that, it's probably going to be another hit because at the moment I've only got 10 players, but we'll discuss all of that in today's video. I will try my best to help advise you as much as possible about what to do in different scenarios as well. If you are enjoying the content here on this channel, please do remember to like, comment and subscribe. This will be the final video before Christmas, so I do wish each and every one of you that celebrates Christmas, I hope you have an incredible Christmas, both day and Boxing Day as well, and hopefully FPL treats you right if it does go ahead. Because it is the final video before Christmas, I am wearing my Christmas jumper, and it is a dinosaur with a hat on, obviously Raptor, had to do it. So I hope you like the little Christmas jumper. I didn't have a hat, unfortunately, but we'll have to make do with just the jumper. Without further ado, guys, let's jump into today's video. So guys, because it is a team selection video, we're going to have a quick shout out to the sponsors of the team selection videos here on this channel, OneFootball. If you're new to the channel and you don't know who OneFootball are, they are the best free football application on the market, whether it be transfer news, injury news, press conference updates, statistics, live notifications during the games, whatever you want, OneFootball will have it. And over this busy Christmas period, whether it be just the postponements or just generally the busy period with lots of fixtures coming thick and fast, different FPL deadlines, I guarantee that OneFootball can help you in some regard. If you'd like to help support the channel and also download the best free football app on the market, you can do so by clicking the link in the description or by scanning the QR code in the top left corner of the screen. You're helping support me, you're getting the best free football app. It's a win-win situation. If you do download OneFootball, let me know what you think of it down below. I'll fly through the Game Week 18 review for two reasons. Number one, it was absolutely horrific for me. And number two, it feels like an age ago. And I'm sure the thing that you're really interested in is how on earth I think I'm going to navigate Game Week 19. But Game Week 18, as I said, was a bit of a disaster. If you follow my channel quite close, you'll notice I'm going from like 30k, and then I have a terrible week and go up to like 50 or 60k. Then I have a great week and I go back down to 30k. Then I have a terrible week and I just keep fluctuating between the two. And then I sometimes will have an average week and I'll just maintain rank. So I've been between sort of 30 and 50, 60k for maybe 6 or 7 weeks now. The last time I was any lower than that was that 1 week when I captained Havertz in Game Week 9. So it must have been sort of, yeah, maybe like 9 game weeks now where I've just been sort of maintaining rank. There's no issue with that. 45k at this time of the season is absolutely brilliant, and I'm absolutely delighted with that. I know there are some of you guys out there with fantastic ranks. Let me know your rank down below. But it is a little bit boring that I just keep on fluctuating between the two. I'd really like to try and push on, but with everything up in the air at the moment, it feels like there's no way to make up that ground. It feels very luck-based, and I've said that on the back of a red arrow, and that might just be me sort of shifting the blame to COVID and the postponements, but it does feel very, very difficult to plan in advance. And I feel like the managers that are quite tactical and plan in advance and are quite patient are struggling a little bit. And I feel like you've almost, at the moment, just got to react game by game and deal with what is directly in front of you. So it wasn't a great game week. The main issue that I had is that I was only going to field 8 or 9 anyway, but I needed Gundogan and Foden to feature. They were my two big differentials. It was a great fixture. I knew City would win quite comfortably. Gundogan in particular, I really expected to feature just because he didn't. So I brought Gundogan in ahead of the likes of Saka, Martinelli, Smith Rowe, because I really thought Gundogan was going to start. He didn't end up starting. Foden didn't start, which was a massive surprise. We found out afterwards that it was nothing to do with tactics. It was to do with the antics off the pitch of Grealish and Foden. Of course, then there is no way for me to predict that, so I'm not blaming myself for that. I'm still happy that I captained Foden because based on what Pep said, it sounded like he might have played, and I do think Foden would have started if it wasn't for the off-field antics. So my captain didn't even play. Luckily, I put the vice-captain on Lacazette as opposed to Salah. I did that because Lacazette had the early kickoff, so I'm glad I did that, and it meant that I got 10 points, so an extra 5 from Lacazette rather than 4 points from Salah, an extra 2 points. So that did mean that it wasn't as much of a red arrow, but generally speaking, it was a nightmare. I did say that I thought Cancelo was a fantastic captaincy option. I'll be honest, I just didn't want to do it because I thought there could be like a John Joe Shelby volley from like 40 yards. City's clean sheets wiped out, and then you're relying on a defender to get attacking returns. We know Cancelo's fantastic, but I don't like to rely on attacking returns from defenders. But realistically, Trent, James and Cancelo, 3 really, really good scores in an otherwise really terrible week. King and Antonio not playing, Foden and Gundogan not featuring at all, despite them having a fantastic fixture. It was a mess, I'll be honest. But 30 down to 45k, it's not the end of the world for me. I'm really not too fussed about that. 52 minus 4. It's a big red arrow, but I'm still inside the top 50k. I'll just move on with it. There's some things we can't control. We've got to keep smiling, keep enjoying playing FPL, and it is what it is. The real issue, I guess, now is what on earth do I do for Game Week 19? So guys, because this video will likely be obsolete in a few hours, or at the very least outdated due to the ongoing news about postponements, injury, rotation, whatever it may be, it seems like every hour we get more bad news. I'm just going to present the team as it is, have a bit of a chat about it, have a bit of chat about what we know already, and hopefully in doing so, even if anything does change after I've recorded this, it will still be useful for you guys. So for anyone that hasn't been following the news and you get your main updates from YouTube, the Liverpool Leeds game has been postponed, the Watford Wolves game has been postponed, Aston Villa Chelsea is potentially under threat to be postponed. At the time of me recording this, it hasn't been. I'm going to go on the basis that it might be, because normally there's no smoke without fire. And I do think that if the other two have been postponed, there's potential there. And also, apparently, Rafa Benitez did appeal for the Everton game to be postponed, because I think they had 5 cases of COVID in the main team. However, I think that was rejected. So Everton could potentially be, but it looks like it's been rejected for now. Aston Villa Chelsea might potentially be. There's rumours of that floating around. And then Wolves, Watford, and Leeds Liverpool have definitely been postponed. That leaves me, at the time of recording, with 10 players. The reason for that is the triple Liverpool and also Josh King from Watford. Now, that's not too bad. I know a lot of people have a double up of Watford, of Dennis and King. You might have a Cody in your team, and you might have triple Liverpool, in which case you're looking really, really rough there. You also might have some other injury issues, or you might have someone non-playing on the bench like Davis from Aston Villa or something like that. Even then, that might then end up being postponed anyway. If the Chelsea-Villa game is postponed, I know a lot of people will have James and Alonso. So I think you're going to be lucky to field 11 this week unless you take a massive hit or unless you free hit. And I suppose that's what I'm currently facing the dilemma of. At the moment, I don't see the value in taking massive hits. I just don't. I think, number one, everything is changing week by week. So the players you bring in for a hit this week might not be available this week. So then what you have to do is you have to look at it this week. Are you confident enough that the player you're bringing in will outscore the player that you're taking out by more than 4 points? And then it might be that the player you take out is available next week and the player that you bring in isn't. So you're not only risking the fact that you expect them to score more than 4 points, you're also risking the fact that they won't then be available next week and the player you bring in won't be available. For example, I brought in Lacazette for Ollie Watkins last week. He only got 5 points. So I only gained one net point from that. It probably wasn't the most smart use of my transfer, but I expected Lacazette to potentially get a little bit more. He could have potentially. But then I'm looking at that and I'm seeing for future games, do I want to make those sort of transfers? Am I confident enough that the player I'm bringing in is going to score that many points? And then do I really want to have an extra issue next week? Or do I just roll the transfer? Do I deal with what I've got or only use my free transfer? I don't think I can really afford to roll the transfer as I wanted to this week. If you watched my video from earlier on chip strategy for Gameweek 22 and beyond, I think it would have been really useful to roll the transfer this week. The reason for that is we don't know what's happening in Gameweek 21. We might potentially want to avoid using the free hit in 22 and as a result use free transfers for that. And therefore, I just felt like 2 free transfers would have been really, really useful. Now, it's almost impossible. I've only got 10 players. In those 10 players are Dallo, who obviously has risk of not playing due to Wan-Bissaka being back now. Also, he was a little bit later into training than Wan-Bissaka as well. Livramento against West Ham's not ideal when I've got Bowen and Antonio. Foden and Gundogan missed out last week. Foden's still potentially being punished for the COVID antics. Gundogan just looks slightly out of favour. Antonio does have COVID. He might have, I think he's returned 1 negative test. If he returns another negative test, he'll be fine. But we don't know potentially how much that's affected him, how much he's been able to train. So not only do I have 10 players, the 10 I have aren't necessarily ideal. And I look at that and I think therefore rolling the transfer is probably not an option. 1 free transfer is not going to really help me fix that. And I don't really want to take out any of my Liverpool players. So then I'm looking at taking out King. But I've only got 0.1 million in the bank. So taking out King isn't going to really help me because there's no one really in and around that I'd want to bring in. Potentially Livramento might be an option. But I don't necessarily think rolling or free transfer is going to help me here. Then I'm talking about a hit. But as I've just said, I don't really want to take a hit. So as you can see, I am at the time of recording this slightly leaning toward a free hit. I just think that we've just been given this extra free hit, which I didn't complain about, by the way. People seem to think I'm complaining. I said that I potentially think that they should have just let it be. I don't think they needed to give us an extra free hit. But now that we do have it, I am probably slightly grateful because it means I can deal with this week with a free hit and still have a free hit for future blanks or doubles in the future. So I appreciate it now. Potentially, maybe I was a little bit quick to judge. But I am happy to have the free hit. And it means that I might just play it this week. The only issue I've got is I might potentially still have issues next week. Of course, next game week, I think, is Tuesday deadline, or it's Monday, Tuesday deadline. It's the 28th is the deadline for next game week. Then there's potentially still issues again. How do I know that the issues that I'm clearing up here, taking out my triple Liverpool, are they then potentially going to have the game postponed again on 28th? Might I then potentially have my triple Man City out? I just don't know that a free hit is necessarily worth it this week when I can, with a free transfer, field 11 at the time of recording, even if it's not ideal, I could just take a -4, have one player on the bench, and then hopefully that one player can cover any issues that I've got with Antonio, Foden, Gundogan, and Dalot. Hopefully they don't all miss out. As you can see, a little bit muddy, my thinking, a little bit foggy. I'm not entirely sure what I want to do at this stage. I think at the moment, it will be either a -4 to get 11 players at the time of recording. However, if the Chelsea-Villa game is postponed and James is also out, I think it's going to have to be a free hit. And I think a lot of managers will be free hitting. I said that managers that already free hitted were at an advantage. You're now not at an advantage because you don't get the second free hit until game week 20, unfortunately. So if you have used your free hit already, you won't have the option to free hit this week, in which case you're just going to have to take a -4 or -8 and do the best you can. You might be lucky enough in that you only have triple Liverpool, but I assume you've got a player from Watford or Wolves. I assume if the Villa or Chelsea game's out, you've got at least 1 or 2 players in that game as well. So I do think you'll get to the stage where you are going to struggle as well. But I think everyone's going to be in the boat where they're struggling slightly. It will just be dependent on your team how much you're struggling. All of that being said, let's now take a look at a potential free hit draft based on what we know currently about which games are postponed. Before we look at my free hit draft, what I thought I would do is just show you if I don't free hit what I could potentially do with my team. So this is the way that the team looks obviously on the official FPL site. You've just seen it before with my graphics. Triple Liverpool plus Josh King. Like I said, I'm not very keen to take out any of my Liverpool boys. If I'm going to take out one, it would actually be Salah. The reason for that is Salah blanks this week. He's got Leicester next week, which I would argue is probably the best option for captaincy next week. So I do think he'll be at like, even with people selling him this week, I think he'll be 150% effective ownership or above. I think he'll be the best captaincy option. But after that, he's then got Chelsea and then probably 2 blanks for AFCON. So you look at that and you think, I could probably get away without having Salah for 5 game weeks potentially. And then you look at who you could bring in for Salah, and you've got Ronaldo, if you make it in 2 moves, or you've potentially got Son as well. So I suppose the options that I face here is, do I take out Salah and go for Son or Ronaldo? In doing so, I'm getting a pretty good captaincy option, and I'm also getting probably over the next 5 game weeks a better option. I don't really want to take out Trent, and I don't want to take out Jota, so really it is only Salah or King. The other option is I just take out someone like Antonio, because I'm not sure if he's going to be fit, or I just decide to take out one of the City boys. The issue is, Gundogan and Foden could quite easily start this week. There's nothing wrong with Gundogan as far as I know. He's had a recurring back issue, but he looks fit when he plays, so I don't know that there's an issue there. And then Foden, he might have only been punished for 1 game. So it might only be 1 game that he's punished for. Apologies for the sniffles, by the way. I'm quite ill at the moment. If we just go to my transfers then, 0.1 million in the bank, so not a lot, only 1 free transfer as well. So it's going to require a hit probably. So the 2 options I've got is I can just do Salah to Son is one option, which is quite useful to do. Salah to Son, so that's 1. And then I would have 11 players, despite the fact that some of them probably not being ideal. And almost definitely I'm not going to have all 11 featuring or starting, but I would at least have 11 players. So that's one option. I could still do Salah to Son, but that leaves me with 2.6 million. So then I could do King to someone else. So I'd have 8.4 million in the bank. There are various options. I could go for Calvert-Lewin, although I have a feeling it's a week too early. I've got a feeling he might come off the bench. But with Everton potentially having 5 players out due to COVID and a lot of other injuries as well, it might be that Calvert-Lewin's forced to start and play 60 minutes. So Calvert-Lewin could be a good option. In and around that, I don't think there are that many options at that price. So I do think it would probably be Calvert-Lewin. I could bring in Ollie Watkins if the Chelsea game goes ahead, but like I said, there's rumours that it's not. If that happens as well, then I've got James as an issue. I do think if the Chelsea-Villa game's off, I'll just free hit, because James is yet another issue in my team. Then I'm looking at only 9 players plus loads of issues, and I don't think that'd be worth it. So it would probably be Calvert-Lewin. So I can just show you what that would look like. If I make those two transfers for a -4, Son and Calvert-Lewin in for Salah and King. The only issue with redistributing the funds that I get from selling Salah to go up to Calvert-Lewin is when I want Salah back, I can't just do Son to Salah again. So that is a potential issue. To be honest, due to the fact that I'll lose value on Salah, unless I make another transfer anyway, I won't be able to go Son back to Salah, because I would lose value on Salah and then I won't have the money in the bank to get him back anyway. So selling Salah probably means that when he comes back, I'll have to take a hit or use 2 free transfers to bring him back. I don't have a massive issue with that, but you have got to think you're probably taking 2 hits to remove Salah, especially the fact that they've got Leicester next week and Leicester looks so bad. So that's a potential option, selling Salah that way. The other thing that I can do then, rather than selling Salah to Son, is doing King to Ronaldo. So redistributing the funds and getting Ronaldo in, because I do think Ronaldo is probably the best captaincy option this week now that Salah's not playing. And then I'd sell Salah, but for Salah, I'd only have 6.2 million. So I'd have to start thinking at that price, what do I want to do? I'm pretty sure Saka's 6.3 3 now. Yeah, so I can't get to Saka. What I could do is something like Martinelli or Erdegaard could potentially bring in. There are a few different options there. So it could be that I do Ronaldo and Martinelli in for Salah and King. Again, that's not much different to doing Son and Calvert-Lewin. When Salah comes back, I'll have to sell Ronaldo, sell one of my cheaper midfielders, and then bring in Salah that way. So what I'm saying is I am considering selling Salah. And if all the other games go ahead and the only cancellations or the only postponements are Liverpool, Leeds, and Watford, Wolves, and some of my other players are confirmed as being fine. Antonio looks like he might feature. Gundogan and Foden look like we might get some like predictions that they're going to feature. If Dalot looks okay, it might be that I just roll with it, take the -4. I'll have technically 12 players if I take the -4. And I think I might be able to see that through. And I think even worst case scenario, if I have 12 and like 3 or 4 miss out, I'll still be able to field like 8 or 9. So I don't necessarily think that's a huge issue. That's the first option then, is I use 2 transfers, take a -4 and deal with it as is. Let's now take a look at the free hit, which is if the Aston Villa-Chelsea game's postponed, if any other games are postponed, or if I just fancy attacking this week and not having to worry about all of this nonsense on Boxing Day. Right, let's just get cracking with it. This is a potential free hit draft. Now, I've only given this about 10, 15 minutes worth of thought. I will have a proper sit down tomorrow, potentially, although it's Christmas Eve, and have a real think about this. But I guess what I want to show here is a couple of things. Number one, I would not free hit with a weak bench. The whole point of free hitting is that you're struggling to field 11 players. There is no point free hitting then with 11 players and then a really weak bench, because with everything up in the air at the moment, the whole point of free hit is it's like a safety net, like a get out of jail free card. You're just creating more problems for yourself there. So I would at the very least have 2 strong subs, but personally I would have 3 strong subs. I would be happy having any of your bench feature. That does not mean a 4.5. It doesn't mean like if the Aston Villa Chelsea game goes ahead, it doesn't mean someone like Ramsey. Because yes, Ramsey plays and yes, he's a good player. But are you expecting Ramsey to score against Chelsea? Not really. I mean, I would like a very strong bench with players that I'm happy coming on. That's my personal opinion on it. So you'll see that I can't get in 3 or 4 premiums, because I have seen some brilliant free hit drafts that involve Kane, Ronaldo, De Bruyne, Son. Of course you can create those drafts. We've all got like £105 million team value now. So those drafts, you can create them. But you're looking at a bench with 1 player on the bench, and even that 1 player is not very good. So for me, if you're using the free hit this week, it's to get out of jail for free. And to do so, I really think you should free hit into a playing bench. I also think it's worth the small upgrade to have 2 playing keepers. That's just in case after the deadline anything's cancelled as well. So as you can see in this draft at the moment, I've got Sanchez and Ramsdale. It doesn't have to be those 2 keepers. You could go a little bit cheaper with like a Dubravka. It doesn't matter who you go for. I would just have a second keeper just in case. I just think if you're on a free hit, you might as well. It's worth 1 downgrade somewhere to get that second keeper in. So that's just some general advice from me. The other thing that I would personally look to do is avoid triple ups wherever possible, despite the fact that in here you can see a few triple ups. The reason for that is that there just aren't that many good fixtures to choose from. So for me, looking at this draft, I would potentially like to maybe take 1 Tottenham player out. So for example, if the Chelsea Villa game goes ahead, I would replace Reguilon for Alonso or James. Potentially take out Saka and put like a Gallagher in instead. So I'm looking there and thinking I'd like to avoid some triple ups if possible. The reason for that is just that if a game is cancelled, I don't want to triple up from 1 team. That also means if you can, try and avoid triple ups from 1 fixture as well. So that would be something that we'd need to really sit down and consider with your team. How many players do you have in each set of fixtures? And if so, if there's more than like 3 or 4 from 1 fixture, that's a real risk that you're taking there. With this team, the main thing for me about free hitting would be bringing in Ronaldo. I think he's the best captaincy option this week. And I think it's a slightly protective act because I think a lot of people will be bringing him in and captaining him. I also just think that you are attacking the week by getting a great captaincy option. I think Son is another great option. The reason for that is Spurs have had loads of COVID outbreaks recently. The game looks set to go ahead. And if the game does go ahead and Son's fit, he plays 90 minutes most games, at least 80 minutes. So Son's a great option for that reason. Nailed, playing really well at the moment. And if they do play a 3-5-2, he looks even better. In and around that, I do have Man City players because Leicester have been so poor recently at the back. So I've just kept the players from my team in. The reason for that is because I hate free hitting and taking out players with good fixtures from my team. I just feel like it's taking a massive risk. So I've kept Gundogan and Foden in. But that could be, potentially, if you think Grealish is going to end his punishment along with Foden, you could put Grealish in there. You could put Bernardo Silva in there just because he's played so many minutes recently. If you can afford it and you can find a way to do it, it would probably be at the absence of someone like Calvert-Lewin or Antonio, and you drop them all the way down to a 4.5. You could potentially bring in De Bruyne for Gundogan and Foden. I think that's a great option, although De Bruyne has played 90 minutes in the last 2 games, so he might not necessarily feature or start in Game Week 19, but De Bruyne is another great option. I do think that I'd want at least 1 Man City attacker in that Leicester fixture. And then I've still got Bowen and Antonio. Same reason as I said before, they're in my team and I don't necessarily want to take them out. The Southampton fixture is a pretty good fixture. And I think if Antonio plays, I think he's a great option. If Antonio doesn't play, you'll get someone off the bench. Hopefully he doesn't cameo. And then you've got Bowen, who's playing up front in a pretty decent fixture. So I wouldn't mind having Bowen in that fixture as a result. Therefore, I think having Antonio and Bowen's not a bad option. But I don't have any issue if you're on a free hit with just taking Antonio out and just having Bowen. Because even if Bowen's not up top, he still should start. And as a result, I still would like to have Bowen in my team. I've put Calvert-Lewin in there. He's a bit of a risk, but I don't mind taking 1 or 2 risks in this team, especially when you do have a slightly stronger bench. I wouldn't recommend taking too many risks. And when I look at this, Antonio, potentially just coming back from COVID, he might still have a positive test, in which case he might not play. Calvert-Lewin's just come back from injury. You've got Gundogan and Foden, a potential risk in there as well. As I said, Dallow's a slight risk as well. So there's maybe 1 or 2 too many risks in this team. So you might want to take out one of those risks. Like I said, someone like a Gallagher's not a bad option in there and he's pretty safe. So something like that. Who else we got? Saka, I've put in over Martinelli just because I had the funds. So if I just scroll up, in this team, I've got 1 million in the bank still to make a few other changes. So it might be that you want to go for Martinelli and then you can upgrade elsewhere. That would give you like 2 million in the bank to play with as a result. So Saka versus Martinelli, I don't really have a favourite. The reason I've gone for Saka is I just think he's more nailed. And at the moment, like I said, you don't want to take too many risks in your free hit team. I think Dallow's a great option if he does start. If you think Wan-Bissaka's going to start, put him in. If you think Luke Shaw or Teller's going to start, put those in. I think a Manchester United defender against Newcastle is not a bad option. Newcastle decent attacking wise, but I still think I would target that fixture. Then you've got Davies in there as well and Reguilon, the double Tottenham defence. I just think Tottenham are defending fairly well. I'd probably bench Davies and play Reguilon, so I wouldn't play both from the start, although they might end up both featuring. Cancelo, you've just got to have in your team. He's brilliant at the moment, really high ownership, but it's a great fixture as well. And then I like Tierney and Ramsdale as a double up. It might be that I play Tierney and Sanchez just to spread the risk and also to cover the Brighton defence because they've got a pretty good fixture. I think it's Brentford at home, so that's a pretty good fixture. So you might want to play Sanchez and then do Sanchez and Tierney. You could potentially bring Cucurella rather than Tierney, and you could have Ramsdale and Cucurella. I like that as well, though Cucurella's been a little bit disappointing with his attacking output. I do think that I would have maybe one Brighton defender in there just because it's a pretty decent fixture. You could even go for the flip opposite. You could go for Mbermo or Tony if you really wanted to, but I would probably advise going for a Brighton defender instead. Outside of that, there are lots of other options. So if we just have a little play around with it, like I said, if you don't want to go Foden, you instead want to go all the way up to a De Bruyne, you could definitely do that. There are so many different ways to fund that. It would just mean probably weakening your bench a little bit. So you need 2.9. So you could just end up taking out Antonio. You could just say, do you know what? Antonio's gone. I'll just bring in a £4.5 million forward and I'll just have 2 playing subs, which is fine. I don't think that's the best way to attack this week with everything going on. But if you want to do that, you can. The other option you've got is you downgrade Saka to a £4.5 million midfielder, and then you downgrade one of your defenders, perhaps like a Tierney down to a £4 million midfielder, or Reguilon down to a £4 million. In that way, you're downgrading 2, but you're keeping Antonio and you're keeping Calvert-Lewin, you're keeping that premium front line. So that's another option to do it. Alternatively, you could just not go for De Bruyne and you could go elsewhere with your transfers. You could go for a slightly more expensive midfielder. For example, I know someone that will probably be quite popular is like a Rashford or a Sancho. So if we have a look at potentially Marcus Rashford in, you'd have a triple Manchester United, which might not be ideal. But in doing so, oh, I've got Salah in there, that's why then. So you would maybe put in like a Martinelli in here. So that's another option. Rather than Saka and Foden, you could have Martinelli and Rashford. I really like that as an option as well. I do think that Newcastle fixture is definitely a nice one to target. Rashford and Ronaldo could be really nice. You could squeeze a Bruno Fernandes if you want to, similar way that we said with De Bruyne. So there are some other options in and around that. I think that generally speaking, this would be the rough structure I'd go for. The reason that I'm starting to think maybe I could squeeze out not playing the free hit is I've not made that many big changes to my current team. All I'm doing really is strengthening the bench and bringing in captaincy Ronaldo and then Son. And I am bringing in the likes of Calvert-Lewin as well. But generally speaking, I don't think this team looks that much stronger than my team, assuming my players play. And that is the big thing. Gundogan, Foden, Dalot. If they all play, my team's actually really good for this week. So if I can get 9, 10, 11 players out for this week, I'm really happy with the way my team looks. It's just how confident I am that the 10 or 11 players that I've got all feature. If they don't, how many do I think is going to miss out? I'll just flick back to what my current team looks like then, just so that you guys can remember. I don't know who I'd captain. I might not risk it with Gundogan. I might just go for Bowen. I might go for Cancelo just because he's almost definitely going to start and he's so fantastic. Gundogan is a real risk because he could cameo. Could go for Foden again, but I'm just not sure that he served out that punishment from Pep. So this is the way the team looks. I don't know what I'm going to do. If you follow me over on Twitter, I'll be tweeting about it. Maybe not Christmas Day, but Christmas Eve and maybe Boxing Day morning. I will be tweeting about it. I'll let you guys know before the deadline what I plan. Not sure at the moment. I just wanted to get this video out, have a bit of a chat about it. Who knows what might happen. If the Villa-Chelsea game is postponed, I think I'll end up free hitting and it'll be something along the lines of what I just showed you. If the Villa-Chelsea game's on, it's a 50-50 at the moment, whether I free hit or take a -4 and try and squeeze out 9, 10, 11 players. Let me know down below. What is your current plan? I always want to hear what you guys are doing. So guys, there you have it. That is my Gameweek 19 team selection video. Who knows what might happen? Might free hit, might not. It's absolute chaos at the moment. I'm still trying to enjoy it and have a smile on my face because that's what FPL is all about. Escaping from everyday life, enjoying it as a hobby, enjoying it as much as we can. Even us content creators, we need to see it that it is a game and we want to try and enjoy it as much as possible. And we want to squeeze enjoyment out wherever we can. If you're not enjoying the game anymore, no one is forcing you to play it. And I do maintain that if it's affecting your mental health, number one, you can always speak to me, DM me on Twitter, and I'll get around to responding to that. If it's ever about anything mental health related, I will respond. Other than that, just you don't have to play the games intensely. If you want to take a step back, take a step back. No one's forcing you to, and you should never play a game that isn't bringing you enjoyment anymore. But what you need to do is just realize you don't have control over it. Deal with it the best you can. Deal with it with a smile on your face. And if you need to write off the season and just make moves for the enjoyment of it, do that. I really, really do hope you have an incredible Christmas. If Game Week 19 does go ahead, which it looks like it should, I hope you get a green arrow. I hope if you free hit that you smash over 100 points and you really make the most of the chip. But more importantly, I just hope you have a great Christmas. I hope you stay safe. And I just want to appreciate and thank you all once again for the support in the lead up to Christmas. You're all absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, guys. Cheers. Bye-bye.